Your phone is probably charging right now. Maybe it's plugged in next to your bed. Maybe it's sitting at 100% and you feel good about that. You've done everything right. You bought the official charger. You never let it fall to zero. You've turned on that little setting that says optimize charging and told yourself that's enough. You treat it carefully, almost like a rule you follow without thinking about it, because somewhere along the way you were told that's what a responsible phone owner does. But here's something nobody tells you. It isn't enough, not even close. And doing everything right the way you've been taught to do it might not be slowing the damage down at all. In some cases, it might actually be making it worse. Every single day, your battery is getting quietly, permanently weaker. Not because you're misusing it, not because you forgot to unplug it in time. It's happening in the background every single charge cycle, no matter how careful you think you're being. And you won't notice it for a while. That's the part that makes this so easy to miss. For the first few months, everything feels fine. The battery lasts all day, the phone feels new, and there's no reason to think anything is wrong. Then, somewhere around a year in, maybe a year and a half, something shifts. The phone that used to survive a full day on one charge suddenly struggles to make it past lunch. The battery percentage seems to fall off a cliff for no reason. You start closing apps you don't need. You start carrying a charger with you everywhere. You blame the apps, you blame a software update, you blame your own habits. Maybe you even start believing your phone is just getting old the way anything mechanical does. But the real reason isn't age in the way you're imagining it. It's something almost nobody explains, something that's been happening since the very first day you took that phone out of the box, and it has very little to do with how careful or careless you've been. This is the story of what's actually happening inside a lithium-ion battery every single time you plug in your phone, a slow, invisible chemical process that no charging habit can fully stop. A hidden threshold that most phones cross constantly without you ever knowing it happened, and the real reason your phone is aging every day, even while you think you're taking perfect care of it. But to understand why your phone is dying, even when you charge it right, you first need to understand what a battery is actually doing every single time it charges. Because most people think battery health comes down to one simple thing: how many times you plug it in. It's not even close. Lithium-ion batteries don't work the way most people picture them, like a bucket that just fills up and empties over and over with nothing changing in between. Inside that battery are millions of lithium ions constantly moving back and forth between two electrodes, an anode and a cathode, through a liquid called an electrolyte. When you charge your phone, ions move in one direction into the anode. When you use your phone, they move back, releasing energy as they go. That movement, that constant back and forth, is what stores and delivers the power your phone runs on every day. And every single time those ions make that trip, the physical structure of the electrodes wears down, just slightly. Microscopic cracks form in the material. Tiny amounts of lithium get trapped in places they can no longer move from permanently. This isn't a malfunction. It isn't a manufacturing defect. This is the battery working exactly as designed, because that's the trade-off of the chemistry itself. Degradation isn't a bug in lithium-ion technology. It's a built-in cost of how the entire system functions. Every single phone battery on Earth begins dying from the moment it's manufactured. The only real question is how fast that process moves, and it turns out that speed is almost entirely in your hands, just not in the way you'd expect. Because here's where the real villain comes in. It's not charging itself, it's heat. Heat is the single biggest accelerant of battery degradation, and almost nobody thinks about it because it doesn't feel dangerous in the moment. It just feels like your phone getting a little warm while it charges, or warming up in your pocket on a hot day, or heating up while you play a game with it plugged in at the same time. It feels completely normal. But at the chemical level, heat dramatically speeds up unwanted reactions inside the battery. It breaks down the electrolyte faster than it should. It accelerates the same electrode wear that would otherwise take years, compressing that damage into a matter of months. Research from battery manufacturers themselves has shown that a battery stored at 40 degrees Celsius loses capacity roughly twice as fast as one stored at 25 degrees. Double the heat, double the damage, and your phone generates plenty of heat entirely on its own, especially while charging, and especially while fast charging, which pushes even more energy through the battery in a shorter window of time. Which brings us to the second hidden threshold, one that has nothing to do with heat directly, and almost everything to do with a habit you've probably never questioned: where you keep the battery sitting. Most people believe the healthiest thing to do is keep their phone charged to 100% as often as possible. It feels responsible. Full battery means no anxiety, no risk of dying at the wrong moment. But a lithium-ion battery held at or near 100% for extended periods sits under significantly higher internal voltage stress than one kept in the middle range. And that stress, combined with the heat your phone generates simply by staying plugged in after it reaches full charge, is one of the most damaging combinations you can put a battery through. It isn't a one-time cost either. It compounds every single night for the 8 hours your phone sits plugged in at 100% while you sleep, completely unaware that anything is happening. And this is the part that should genuinely surprise you. Multiple independent studies on lithium-ion aging, including research widely cited by organizations like Battery University, have found that keeping a battery consistently between 20% and 80% rather than letting it swing between 0% and 100% can more than double its usable lifespan. Not a small improvement, more than double. A battery cycled only within that middle range can often retain over 90% of its original capacity even after 2 full years of daily use. Meanwhile, a battery regularly pushed to 100% and drained down near 0% might fall to 70 or even 80% capacity in that exact same period. That gap, the difference between a phone that still feels brand new after 2 years and one that needs charging again by 2 p.m., often comes down entirely to this one invisible, completely unmonitored habit. And this isn't just theory buried in a lab report somewhere. You can see it play out in real phones, in real conditions every single day. Take 2 identical phones, same model, same battery, given to 2 different people on the same day. One person charges overnight every night, letting it sit at 100% for 6 or 7 hours before they wake up, and tops it up throughout the day with fast charging whenever it's convenient. The other keeps it roughly between 20% and 80%, avoids leaving it plugged in once it's full, and only fast charges when they're actually in a hurry. 18 months later, independent battery health tracking on both phones tends to show a measurable gap, often 10 to 15 percentage points of battery health separating the two, despite the fact that both people used their phones the exact same amount, made the exact same number of calls, watched the exact same amount of video. Same phone, same age, same usage, dramatically different battery health, entirely because of habits neither person thought twice about. And here's the catch, phone manufacturers already know all of this. That optimized charging feature you turned on, thinking it had solved the problem for you, it helps. But it doesn't come close to eliminating it. Most optimized charging systems work by learning your daily schedule and delaying that final push to 100% until shortly before you wake up, which reduces the number of hours spent sitting at full charge overnight. That's genuinely useful, but it does nothing for the middle of your day. When you plug in for a quick top-up between meetings, keep using the phone while it charges past 90%, and generate heat while the battery is simultaneously sitting at high voltage, which happens to be the exact combination that causes the fastest, most permanent wear. The feature quietly manages one small slice of a much larger problem, while most people have no idea the larger problem even exists in the first place. So the honest, complete picture looks something like this. Every single charge cycle wears the battery down slightly. That part is unavoidable, built into the chemistry itself. Heat then multiplies that wear, often in ways you can't see or feel happening, and keeping your phone near 100% for long stretches of time adds an entirely separate layer of stress that most people don't even know exists. None of these factors feels dangerous in the moment. There's no warning light, no notification, nothing that tells you damage is quietly accumulating in real time. It just adds up, cycle after cycle, day after day, night after night, until 18 months or 2 years later, your battery percentage suddenly plummets in a single afternoon, and you're left wondering what on earth went wrong with a phone you always thought you were taking good care of. This matters more than it might seem at first because it isn't really about convenience. It's about the person who can't just buy a new phone every year, who's stretching the same device across 3 or 4 years because that's what their budget allows. It's about someone relying on their phone to get through an entire work shift, watching it die by mid-afternoon with no idea why, quietly blaming themselves for a problem they never had the information to prevent. It's about the fact that a 2-year-old phone doesn't have to feel broken. For most people it does, simply because nobody ever explained what was actually happening every single time they plugged it in, and it's worth asking why this information isn't printed on the box or explained the first time you set up a new phone, right when it would actually help. Instead, most people learn it by accident years later, usually from a forum post or a tech YouTuber, long after the damage on their own phone is already done. By the time you find out that charging to 100% every night was quietly working against you, you've usually already been doing it for a year or two. And here's the uncomfortable part. This isn't a mystery that manufacturers are somehow unable to solve. Phone companies have known for years exactly how heat and high voltage charging degrade a battery over time. But building a phone that actively discourages fast charging, or one that nags you every single time you leave it plugged in overnight, isn't particularly good for a business model built around people eventually wanting to upgrade. A battery that quietly wears out a little faster than it strictly needs to isn't necessarily a flaw in the system. In a lot of ways, it's simply the system functioning exactly as intended. So it isn't that charging your phone is dangerous, it isn't that you've been doing something wrong this entire time. It's that lithium-ion batteries were never designed to last forever, and the small habits that feel completely harmless, charging to 100% out of habit, leaving it plugged in overnight, reaching for fast charging purely out of convenience, are quietly stacking damage that never shows up all at once until one day, without warning, it does. There's no fan to blame here. No single dramatic moment where everything suddenly goes wrong. Just a slow, invisible cost, paid a little at a time, every single day, whether you ever notice it or not. But next time you plug in your phone tonight and you watch that number climb steadily toward 100%, now you know exactly what's happening underneath that screen, and why the habit that feels the safest, the one you've trusted the most, is often the one quietly costing you the most.